Okay, this is the first lecture in college algebra. Disclaimer, I am lecturing to an empty classroom, so if I make a mistake, there's not going to be anybody to alert me to my mistake. So if when you're watching these videos, if you see a mistake, please contact me and tell me, like in video 1 of section whatever, I think there's a mistake. And if there's a mistake, I will re-record that video. But I am lecturing to an empty classroom. So this first video will be pretty short because section 1.1 is supposed to be 100% review. If this is not 100% review, you probably should contact me and we discuss your options of why you may be better placed in a different math class. But section 1.1, graphs and graphing utilities. So, plot the given points in the rectangular coordinate system, state in which quadrant or axis each point is located. So, quick review of the coordinate system. So here we have the coordinate axes. The x-axis is the horizontal axis, the y-axis is the vertical axis, the point in the middle is 0, 0. So when we have a point, say A, 2, 6, the first coordinate is your x-coordinate, the second coordinate is your y-coordinate, and we start at the origin and we go over 2, up 6, which looks like it'd be right there, and that's point A, and that is in quadrant 1, that this is quadrant 1 over here. And so quadrant 1. B, so we go to -4 on the x-axis, and then up 2, and there's letter B, and that is in quadrant 2. C, so 0 is telling me to go nowhere on the x-axis, the -5, and so C, and that is on the y-axis. D, -3, so over -3 on the x-axis, -2 down. There's D, and that's in quadrant 3. E, 0, 4, 4, 0, excuse me, would be right there. There's E, and that's on the x-axis. And then we didn't end up with a point in the 4th quadrant, but quadrant 4 is over there. And so some basic plotting of points. I have no clue why I went with Roman numerals for the quadrants. You can use regular numbers if you want. For some reason, I just went with Roman numerals. Okay, next thing, x and y intercepts. Your x-intercepts are where you cross the x-axis. The x-intercepts in blue. Now, if we want to be really, really perfect, we would say the x-intercepts are the points -4, 0, -2, 0, 2, 0. There's the absolute perfect answer, but I will certainly accept people that just write x equal -4, -2, and 2. Now, one thing we do want to note when I did it the ordered pair route, that when I'm talking about the x-intercept, the y-intercept is always 0. And it says that down there. Note for an x-intercept, the y-coordinate is always 0. And the y-intercept in red here, there's my y-intercept, and that would be the point 0, -4, or y equals -4. I don't care which way you do it. But again, notice the x-coordinate of the y-intercept is 0, and so that's said down there also. For y-intercept, the x-coordinate is 0. That when we're talking about intercepts, and later on we'll be calculating them as opposed to just looking at a graph, later on when we have to calculate them, that's going to be a fundamental piece of information to remember, that the other coordinate is always 0. That if I'm looking for an x-intercept, we know that the y-coordinate will be 0. And if we're looking for a y-intercept, we know that the x-coordinate will be 0. The other guy is always 0. Okay, moving on. There are many ways to graph an equation. One of the easiest, though not very efficient, is to use to graph using a T-chart. And so T-chart, or otherwise known table of values. So, why we call it a T-chart? We make a T. And then x and y, where y is going to be found by the equation, absolute value of x minus 4 minus 5. And now here they've told us to let x equal 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Somewhat mimicking what you will see for the homework. Your homework is in MyLabs Plus, or nix that, it's not in MyLabs Plus. I believe it's just in MyLab Math. Little technical difference there that you don't need to worry about. And in the homework, you'll be given something like this, and they will tell you the x values. Now, in practice, all on your own, come test time, I'm probably not going to tell you what x values to pick, and you pick whatever x values you want. But here, just mimicking what you're going to see in the homework, they tell you the x values. We plug in, so y is going to be the absolute value of 2 minus 4 minus 5, which is the absolute value of negative 2 minus 5, which is 2 minus 5, or negative 3. So we have the point 2, negative 3. X equals 3. So y is going to be the absolute value of the quantity 3 minus 4 minus 5, which is the absolute value of negative 1 minus 5, which is 1 minus 5, which is negative 4. Keep going. 4. Y is going to equal the absolute value of 4 minus 5 minus 5. Copied it down wrong. That's not good. That's supposed to be a 4 there. And so that's the absolute value of 0 minus 5, which is 0 minus 5 for negative 5. 5. So that's going to be y equals the absolute value of 5 minus 4 minus 5, which is the absolute value of 1 minus 5, 1 minus 5 for negative 4. And then I've run out of room to write the calculations for 6, so if we just do 6 and talk about it out loud, putting 6 in there, that'd be the absolute value of 6 minus 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. So I have 2 minus 5, negative 3. And then plotting my points, 2, negative 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 3, negative 4, so there's 3, negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, negative 4, excuse me, 4, negative 5, right there. 5, negative 4, right there. 6, negative 3, right there. And connect the dots, and we've got it. So there's one way to graph. Now, a lot of these things you can check by using your graphing calculator. And come test time, if you can check stuff, check stuff. So I'm going to use my graphing calculator to check the graph that I just did by hand. So I have an old one, T83, 84s work pretty much the same way. So I'm going to turn it on. It's going to warn me that I need new batteries. We're going to ignore that for now. So if I want a graph on my graphing calculator, I press y equals, and if there's some old stuff in there, clear the old stuff out, and then just put the function in there. It was absolute value. This has an absolute value button. You just have to find it. And so if you want to find the absolute value, hit your math key, and then use your arrow key to go over to NUM, number. And that very first option there, ABS, that stands for absolute value. So the key sequence again, to get absolute value, math, arrow over to number, and then ABS, so then if I just select one, that takes it back. Now, there's my ABS key, but I was not in the y equals, so we will start all over again. Clear? If you want a graph, y equals. Now the absolute value, math, arrow over to number, 1. Then put in the expression, which was x minus 4 in the parentheses for the absolute value. And then it was minus 5. And then what will work most of the time, but not all of the time, is the standard window. So I'm going to hit zoom and then 6. And that's going to give me the standard window. And then it'll graph it. And it should look reasonably close to what we graphed, and it does look reasonably close. So I feel good about my answer. Now the standard window, if I press window, that's showing you what it's counting on. The standard window is counting the x-axis from -10 to 10, counting by 1. So x min, -10, x max 10, x scale 1. So it's counting from -10 to 10 by 1. And then y min, -10, y max 10, y scale 1, counting the y-axis from -10 to 10 by 1. That's the standard window. And that's going to work a great deal of time, but it's not always going to work if you have numbers that are bigger than 10 or smaller than -10. But a lot of times that standard window is going to work. This is the end of section 1.1. Like I said, this is supposed to be completely review. We'll get into much more detailed stuff in the next sections. So that's the end of this lecture and the end of this section.